Oh, there you go. Hello, everyone. We are
Okay,
live.
welcome to our second hangout. Right, just want to say this again. Welcome Andy, welcome Kelly, welcome Johnny, welcome Maysam, welcome Richard, and welcome Simon. So, not sure whether they heard us from the beginning, but if you look to your right, there's a tab on the top. You can go to chat, and then you guys can chat to each other via the chat box. So it's just like a normal chat box. You can chat publicly, or you can chat to someone by PMing them. So just play around with the function, and once again, welcome. So
Let's start.
we're good to go, yeah?
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Jonathan, you want to say something?
Well, first of all, welcome to our second hangout of Limit Break Lifestyle Academy. Grateful to have you all here. Today we invited another two co-hosts, Martin and Kofi. And sorry, was that?
Kofi, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad. It never really introduced. So they're going to share their experiences with, their life journey and also their purpose that they found. So we'll go from there.
Yeah. So tonight's obviously tonight's title is called Finding Life's Purpose. So at the end, we will have a short, really short presentation, about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, going through 5 questions on how you can find your purpose in life if you have not found one yet, which will be very exciting. And because it's our second hangout, we're doing this the first time to do co-host, so we start with 2 people. And if it works well, next time we would like to invite more people to join us to do co-hosting as well, and so that we can start building a community and start getting to know one another. How about we start with Martin? Martin, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about yourself, what you currently do, and why are you here?
Sure. Okay. Thanks guys for inviting me as a guest speaker, I guess. So currently at the moment, actually it's a very interesting period for myself. I've just basically left the global organisation and joined another one as of last week. So previously I was working for a global organisation called Pearson. Most of you will be more familiar with Penguin Books and Financial Times. So that company is about 50,000 users global wide, and I left there last week, and now I am working for EE as a technical delivery consultant. So interestingly for me, one of the things that sat in the back of my head was, okay, so I am closing a really big door in terms of my career to move into, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a small company. I mean, EE themselves are quite big. It's basically Orange and T-Mobile merged together to form this company. But what I realised at the time was you had to really take the ego and the emotion out of moving on with your career. So making the decision was pretty difficult. But once you remove layers and then just look at the cold, hard truths about making these decisions, you suddenly realise actually for me to move was absolutely the right decision. So far I've not looked back, but albeit it's been quite busy. Luckily for me, I'm home based, so I can work from home. If I need to go out, then I will. I'm in the process of getting a company vehicle to poodle around in, so which is quite nice. I do feel quite privileged, but some people seem to think it was quite simple for me to end up where I am, which I can tell you categorically it is not. If you look back through my career, like I say, I spent most of my time in telecoms and IT. Everyone has their own agenda and what they want to do with their lives. But back in the early uni years, even before joining uni, I never really actually knew what I wanted to do. So I went and just picked something that I thought I'd like doing, which ended up being electronic engineering. So I had 4 years at uni, and by the time I graduated, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with electronic engineering. The maths sucked, all the simulations sucked, all the Unix programming sucked. I hated every single minute of it. So then I just basically ended up working at Orange, doing phone and technical support, very, very high level. Didn't know why I was doing it at the time, but I persevered, and then slowly moved on to more IT-based stuff. And then from IT, and then ended up working in the insurance industry, and subsequently ended up in Pearson, large one, and now I am where I am. But getting there, like I said, it wasn't easy, but then again, there were several things that I think would be quite useful to share with you guys. Is a lot about being comfortable with difficult situations. So most of my career, you always come across some form of discomfort, and people tend to shy away with dealing with discomfort, whether it's confrontation, we're having a hard time. People tend to like to avoid things, but the problem is, like they always say, ignorance doesn't really solve any problems. So what I quickly learned was to actually face them, and by facing them, your mental approach becomes somewhat different in how you deal with a situation. And a lot of the times when I dealt with discomfort, again, it was just a matter of perseverance and then getting used to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found was quite important is the difference between investing in processes and outcomes. So a lot of people, when they go out to do something, it is with, it follows this if-then model. If I go and do this, then I'll get that. So what I'll quickly realize with that model is that there's a high probability of failure, because when you do an if-then model, then you have already set an expectation. So a very crude example, if I put £20 on the table, on a roulette table, then I will win £100. So then when that doesn't happen, you end up being pretty upset, and you feel quite disappointed.
So it's like putting an expectation on something that you can't control, isn't it?
That is very true. When you follow this if-then model, if you invest in outcomes, there is a high probability that it may not happen, or you may fail at it. So if I do this, I will be successful at that. And that model for me quickly dropped off the radar. So I adopted a different way, which is to invest in the process. So basically, in a nutshell, it's just learning to love what you do. So as with anything, if you have a passion in doing something, you enjoy doing it, you don't mind doing more of it. Therefore, success becomes an afterthought because you enjoy doing it so much. Success is just a byproduct of enjoying what you do. So throughout the past 3-4 years of my career, I've just been focusing on processes, enjoying what I do. And I have been quite lucky that I've worked myself to a fairly good position in my career, but there's still lots to learn. But if anything, my advice to most people is invest in processes and not outcomes. And I think that's pretty important. And the other thing for me is most people like to be successful. Everybody wants to be successful, okay? But for me, I didn't particularly think being successful was the most important thing to me. What's most important to me was actually to be valuable. And to give you an example, most Chinese families, very first, second generation, they'll always tell their kids, oh, you know, when you study, see, I know John is smiling now because he knows this is coming. So, you know, they say, oh, go and be a doctor, go and study law because that's where all the money is, you know. So everybody goes and studies law or studies to be a doctor. I, on the other hand, I just did what I pretty much wanted to do. But here's the difference between being valuable and being successful. And you'll quickly see that actually the former is a lot more desirable than the latter. So I studied something, if someone studied something pretty niche, so maybe one person took this course in a specific subject of engineering, and then there was 100 people that studied law. So by the time all those 100 law students graduate, they're all going to look for jobs. But the problem is, there's 100 of them. So as far as a law firm, they've got a choice. Therefore, you know, the demand hasn't exceeded the supply. Forget that, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Yep. So therefore, you know, as a result, they can they've got pick of the bunch. They can push the salary bands down, but from a law graduate's perspective, yeah, you're successful. You graduate, you got 1-1. But the problem is, there's so many of you that you're fighting to get a job. You know, so yeah, you're successful, but you're not that valuable as a result because there's 100 more or 99 more law students that are also got good grades and looking for work. But the person that studies something very, very specific, on the other hand, you know, he might have got like a 2-2 or maybe not so high grade. He knows a bit about what he does. But the thing is, he was the only one that majored in that subject. And now suddenly he's become valuable because there's not many of them about. Therefore, irrespective of maybe how successful he is, or how successful they are, I've been too sexist, you quickly realise that that person is valuable, and now people want him to work for a company, and now he's in demand. So therefore, he commands a slightly higher salary because of that. He's more desirable, and I think that's really important to bear that in mind. You know, so when anything I do, I tend not to focus on being successful, but rather to be valuable, be a valuable asset to society or to your family or to your friends around you. You know. And that's a key differentiator for me. And the other thing I like to mention is that the subject of finding your purpose in life. Okay, some people might think it's quite complicated. Actually, I think it's very, very simple. All you've got to do is look at everything you do. Why do you want to be successful? Why are you working so hard to get that pay packet? Why do we go to the gym and work out so hard? And what you find is actually at the very high level of it, and it's in every human innate nature, is actually we just want to be happy. So if you peel off all the layers, you'll find at the very, very top, it's just because you want to be happy. No matter what you do, what you don't do. So I think for me, the purpose of life, for me and for pretty much most other people, whether they realise it or not, is actually you just want to be happy, you know. And it doesn't really have to be that much more complicated than that. You know, other people might have other views, but that is essentially my view on, you know, what is the purpose in life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much for sharing. I mean, even I personally have. Yeah, even myself, I personally learned a lot. You can see I've jotted down a few key points.
Yeah, I've been writing down quite a few notes as well.
Yeah. So you know, it's you know, there's more to it. But me being me, you know, got to give other people a chance to have their say in their experiences. But I'll do a few more bits. But as you see, my mouth is getting dry, so I'm just having some tea. You know, giving myself a break.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you very much, Martin. So you guys, you know, Martin's always he's very supportive of us and always just talk to him on a chat as well. You can feel free to PM him, chat to him privately if you want, or just talk to him on in public. We don't mind that. Martin has a lot to share. I think he works out with John at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah. He gives me like quite hard.
Yeah, so Martin works Jono out hard in terms of the physical side of his life. Okay, brilliant. Kofi, welcome, and please spend some time to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, what you currently do, and of course, why are you here?
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm Kofi. I'm basically what you'd call I'm a visual effects 3D artist. So what I do on a daily basis is create visuals, CGI for film and television and animation. I'm currently working at a post-production house in Soho in London, called Glassworks, and I've been there for the past 2 years. So basically, I'm just here to share my story of a transition from uni life into being a professional. Basically, I started off before going to uni. I'd always been interested in video games, and I'd always wanted to work in the video games industry. But then, before starting university, I realized I stopped playing games, or I didn't like playing games anymore. But then I realized I had an interest in animation, so I decided to go to university and study animation. So I went to Ravensbourne, if anyone knows of it, and I went on the animation course, which was a 3-year animation course. During the first year, introductory year, I realized because basically in the animation, as in animation, there's a lot of departments. So, say for example, you wanted to make an animation, you'd have someone that would write a script, someone that would like animate it, someone that would build the characters or whatever. But during the first year, I realized I didn't like animating, so I had to find something that I enjoyed doing in the different departments of the animation, which was 3D modeling, which was I found much more creative because it gave me the chance to create and build stuff that would be used for a movie or an animation. So 3 years into university, I'd say during my 3rd year of university, I started doing work experience, and then lucky enough, I got into 2 different companies while I was at university, and then there's one of these companies that I really wanted to work at, and I had all my hopes on the company to work there once I was out of university. About 4 months before finishing university, I did another work experience at a different company, which was much smaller. And then, to cut the story short, I finished university, and then the biggest company that I really wanted to work at contacted them, and then they said they had no jobs going, which was really hard to take because I put all my hopes in it, and I had good contacts, and I was certain I'd get a job. So, having had my hopes like that or whatever you may call it, I became desperate because I when everyone finishes university, everyone's trying to apply to different companies and try to get their first job. So I had my hopes shut down. But luckily, because I did another work experience before finishing university, I just gave them a call and just said, would you guys be interested in taking me on, even if it's on your lowest wage? Because I'd like to work with you guys. Yeah, they called me in and then had a chat, and then they offered me a position with them. But they're a small company. They only had about 2 to 3 people in the 3D department. So I was there for about 6 months, and then they had to let me go because they're quite small. They didn't have much jobs coming in, and there was no point keeping me. So I became redundant after 6 months. Then being there during my 6 month period, I only got the chance to work on one project. So having been made redundant, only had one project as a showreel piece or as a portfolio piece, which isn't enough for me to use to apply for the next job. So it became really difficult for me to get the next job because I need a lot of portfolio work to show the employers. So this became difficult. I was renting out and I had no job. It became really tough. I became redundant for like 6 months, which was a hard, difficult moment. But then during that period of time, I spent developing my showreel and working on personal projects to put on my showreel, which then I used to apply to the company that I'm currently working at. And then I was given an interview, but then started off as a runner. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Basically, in the creative industry, to get your foot in the door, you have to start off as a runner, which is helping out in the office, serving tea to clients, making sure clients are comfortable, doing errands and whatnot. So I started off as a runner, working in the kitchen, just being a slave to the company. But then when I got into the company, I made sure people saw my work and my portfolio and people saw what I could do. So luckily enough, after a month of being a runner, I was moved up into the 3D department to work on a commercial that was going on at the moment. Not knowing I was on trial. So basically, after the project finished, I was given a job. I was made to stay in the 3D department, which was really great because that's what I was wanted to do. So I've been there for 2 years now, working on like projects for TV, like a lot of commercials that have been on TV internationally and whatnot. So that's my story. I just wanted to share how to go for your dreams, like no matter what breaks, no matter what keeps you from reaching it. I mean, before I got to where I wanted to get to, I had an idea of sort of what I wanted to do. And then I realized, I wasn't interested, but there was something else that was quite similar that I liked doing. So I pursued it. And even though I was made redundant in the first company that I worked at, I didn't sit at home doing nothing or just hoping to get another job. I had to personally get out and then work on personal projects to put on my showreel, which then allowed me to get a job. So yeah, it's really important to not be shut down once your dreams are cut or killed off by someone else because of what benefits them. I don't know.
So what kind of tip can you give us? What did you learn Never give up.
Never to give up. I mean, well, you always have to have an idea of what you want to do your research. I mean, currently most people employ or recommend people that are like an employer would recruit someone based on recommendation of people that they know. So it's good to network, know who is a key person in the company that could possibly employ you, or people that work in the company that might be friends of friends, and then just basically let people see what you can do, let them know what you can do, just like advertise yourself, advertise your work, and then never give up, really. Just keep going for it. Yeah, basically it's very competitive, like in the creative industry. Everyone's really good, like so you have to stand out and you have to be unique. Basically, a lot of foreigners are recruited, whereas there's a lot of talent in London. But like when you don't know people, or when you don't let people know what you can do, you can't get in, even though you've got the skills. So yeah, so that's what I can share.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Kofi. From your story, I can tell you've obviously been through a lot of struggles, and you've jumped from jobs to jobs and getting disappointed, so many times, but you never gave up. You just went for it, and I mean, I know a lot of people would probably wouldn't be able to take it, and they would just give up. And personally, I know a lot of friends who actually give up after one or two tries. The moment they get their CV rejected or get the first interview smashed down, and not being able to find a job after university. I personally know a lot of friends who just give up. Yeah. They just don't even bother anymore. They don't try. They stay on job seeker allowance, or they just bum around, or they just work in a normal takeaway or restaurant and become a waiter, and they don't try. They don't carry on trying anymore. And if you had given up, that would have been 3 years of university life wasted, and what was the whole point? And in the day, and I'm proud of you, as a friend, I'm proud of you, and I'm really grateful to have you here tonight to share your stories and your struggles with us. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to say thank you once again.
No problem.
That's an awesome story. What I learned from Kofi was persistence is key, and never stop learning and developing yourself.
Yeah.
That seemed to be a very big part, because a lot of people, like Ick said, they tend to just give up and stop developing themselves. What you did was what any people in the creative industry should be doing anyway, which was to work on their portfolio and on themselves.
Yeah.
Because if you want to stand out, then you have to be good at it. And in order to do that for creative people is put hours into it, really. Instead of what many people probably do nowadays is probably just sit and play games and hope that they can make money out of playing games. Some people do, don't get me wrong. I do know a lot of players who are professional tournament players, making a lot of money on them, but only if you grind your hours onto it to make it pay. Otherwise, there's no point. So yeah, and a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, to that point about not giving up, there is a point in time where you do have to draw a line when it comes to not giving up. And I guess this is the difference between giving up and letting go. So what I find is a lot of people will repeatedly do the same thing over and over again, hoping that there'll be a different outcome. But for me, I think it's unreasonable to expect that if you do the same thing, then you're going to get a different outcome. The outcome is probably going to be the same. And at that point, you really have to realize, oh, okay, I'm doing the same thing day in, day out. The outcome is not going to change. There's a point in time where you just have to learn to let go, or do something different. because a lot of people will keep doing things repetitively in hope that something will change, or that opportunity will appear, or they will get that little bit of extra money. And the thing, what I find with a lot of old work colleagues is they will tend to complain about not being paid more or getting more money. And the result is that they don't get any more than what they deserve, so they end up just doing the exact amount that they're paid for. But the problem with doing that in itself is that you cannot simply demonstrate that you can do more or deserve more as a result of doing exactly what you're paid to do. So for me, it was always doing just that little bit extra more, but not too much. You know, do a little bit more to demonstrate, or at least justify, that you deserve that little bit more. Maybe a promotion, new job, or a little pay rise. So it's important to sometimes just take a step back and just have a look at what you're doing. You know, it's great not giving up. You know, and sometimes it can be driven by ego. You know, oh, I'm not giving up because the moment I give up, I fail. You know, no, it's not about failing. You know, and I think from the last webinar we had, there was an important comment I made, which is there are no winners or losers, only winners and learners. And that always sticks with me, you know, and more so when I go training, whether it be myself or with Jono. I think doing exercise is a great conduit to nurture your mental ability to cope with discomfort. And I think Jono knows this. You know, when I go train with him, you know, I'll tell him, you know, to keep going. You know, you're nearly there and stuff. You know, the last reps always kill. It kills me. Never mind Jono. You know, but you slowly nurture this mentality about, you know, being a bit more resilient to discomfort, and it lends itself well to everyday life. So that's why I exercise, not necessarily just to stay fit or to get fit, lose weight. Also, there's also a mental side of it which people don't really see or understand. And this goes hand in hand with all the martial arts training I do. So I've been doing martial arts for about 15 years, and it's taken that many years to get my black belts, which is not something that I don't often publicize to people. You know, I turn up training and I sit with all the white belts, you know, and act like a white belt. So it's not all ego driven, you know. And for me, I'd rather much be a white belt and a student than to be a black belt and an instructor, simply because when you're a white belt, you know, the world is your oyster. You've got a load of things to learn, and you know, you can make mistakes, you know, and not really feel bad because you know you're learning. But when we reach to a certain level in martial arts, and especially when getting the black belts, the first thing I said to my instructor is, "Why do you give me the black belts? You know, why do you give me instructorship? You know, because now you know there's that level of expectation of you that you know you have to live up to being a black belt, and sometimes I don't really like that because when people see that, they have this level of expectation set on you." And it can be a lot of pressure sometimes when I have to run a class, you know, and deliver content, and make sure that you know I'm not teaching people the wrong things, not giving them false sense of security with the material that they're given. But again, martial arts is another great conduit to life. You know, I do a lot of Western boxing, and when I look back to the very early days of when I started to learn boxing, was that I was most of the time evasive. So, in other words, I spent most of the time trying to avoid being punched. So that created two problems for me. A, I couldn't punch back, and B, I quickly realised that actually you can't avoid all the punches. You can't close all the doors. At some point, you are going to get punched in the face, and that's no different in life. You know, you can forever avoid problems, but at some point, one will just come knocking at your door, and you won't know what hit you. So when I quickly realised that, the thing that my instructor told me was that actually you just sometimes have to accept that you're going to get punched in the face. And once you've done that, once you've accepted that, your mentality changes because you're no longer on the back foot. So, you know, you go in, you accept you get punched in the face. What do? You punch them back twice as hard. Give them something to think about, you know. And I think that was a great lesson for me, is, you know, to learn acceptance. And it's a very hard lesson. Most of the time, there are certain things that I refuse to accept in terms of circumstances, but actually it is pertinent that sometimes you just have to accept, you know, your situation, or you're going to get a shit sandwich at some point in your life. You know, once you've accepted it, you'll deal with it in a very, very different way, in a way that probably ends up being quite rewarding. So yeah, learning acceptance, I think is a very crucial life skill. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to avoid things from happening, which is not the same as preempting or preventative. You know, that all comes down to planning. But you know, life doesn't have an instruction manual. There are things that you just you know, you cannot simply plan for. You know, so it is always, for me, always a good thing to sometimes learn acceptance, and then the way you deal with it will be a lot different. But again, you know, it's telling people to change their mindset isn't going to happen overnight. It's something that you do bit by bit, you know, a chunk at a time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, like there's a quote that says, you know, once the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you can't change someone's mindset overnight, and you can't force them to change, unfortunately. And it really comes down to the main purpose why we are doing this hangout, why me and Jonah have created this community. It's because we want to create an environment, a community for people like us who wants to succeed in life, or who wants to be surrounded by the same people with the right mindset, and so that you can rub each other off, and not just be surrounded by negative people out there who I call monkeys. And that I find is so important in order to keep our momentum going, and I find it so crucial to have this hangout and to have this community and grow this. And the more people we can contribute to have in this group, the more we can contribute. And I've learned so many things from Martin tonight, and I've learned so many things from Kofi tonight. And I wish to continue to learn from everyone else who have not had a chance to say anything yet. But those of you who are listening, I do hope that one day you would voice out and become a co-host as well, to volunteer. And yeah, so once again, thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Kofi. Jonathan, do you want to talk a little bit, just 2 minutes, about your story? Just a quick brief. Some people are new in this room and they might not know who you are or what you do. Just 2 minutes before we run the presentation.
Yep, sure. Well, my name is Jonathan Boom. Those who know me would know me as the web designer, the technical guy, or the nice guy that helps out. So, where should I start? Hang on a sec. Let me just find some notes that I wrote down earlier.
So just tell us a bit about why did you start this hangout?
Okay, so why I started this hangout was to create a community where like-minded people like ourselves can hang out online and chat about things like success, what's your purpose, your goals, your targets, your fears, your objections, the limits that stop you from doing what you want to achieve. That's the kind of community that I want to create, where everyone is helping out each other to break each other's limits. That's why it's called Limit Break Lifestyle Academy. The whole sole purpose is to help each other break limits, whereas some that have known me may have seen my crazy Macau bungee jump, where I jumped off Macau building. If you haven't, it's on YouTube anyway. If you want to search Jonathan Poon Macau bungee jump, it's on there. Where I jumped off 233 meters, I believe, which was the Tower of Macau. For me, it wasn't a fear; it was more of a conquer. For me, it was more of an achievement. What can I achieve from doing this? If I could walk on fire at Tony Robbins on hot burning coal, would jumping off a tower limit me as well, or would it not? Which was just to prove to myself that, yeah, jumping off the tower is not a problem. So that's what I did. Flew to Hong Kong for 2 weeks. One of the weekends, went over to Macau with my mates. I jumped off the Macau tower just to prove to myself that there's not much to it but the jump. All it is just a belief system that tells you that you can't do something, or this is not me. If you say this is not me, this is pretty much you. So that's what I did, and that's where I realized that break through limits and beliefs, you just have to take action and do it, and be responsible for doing this and holding yourself accountable to achieve what you set. Any goals and targets that you have, you may or may not reached. It is down to yourself to reach these goals and targets. No one else knows them unless you share it to everyone else, that you publicly declare that this is my goal for another month. And you actually have people telling you, have you reached that goal yet? Or why have you not reached that goal? What's stopping you? What problems are you encountering? How can anyone help you? That is the whole purpose of this hangout. The community you want to create was just to make that. So that's where I found my passion was. I like to help people, and from all this mindset training, entrepreneurial training, business training, your development, it's all down to your learning abilities, and like Martin said, your learning acceptance. If you're not willing to learn, then you will never grow. So that's where it came to. So my passion was just helping people, and through all this, I found my passion, which was to break through limits and help others. This is where my strongest point is helping people, breaking their limits and finding their objections and their fears that's stopping them. Anything else I want to put down? Oh, and my side stuff, which I did during university, was building websites and marketing. So that's where my other strong points was also where I help people generate their marketing leads, their businesses, their traffic, other multiple visual video editing, all those, and all this just helps me as a person develop in terms of learning, because there's always learning into creativity. You always have to keep doing it, put the hours in. But there's also a lot of patience, where projects just take time, and you just have to be persistent to see it through.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jono. So that's Jono for you. You'll be seeing a lot of his handsome, bubbly face every month from now on. So me and Jonathan has prepared a very short slideshow for all of you, and it's just a simple 5-question. For those of you who have not found a purpose in life yet, or would love to learn what your purpose in life is, this is what it's for.